It started with a phone call. Not the usual kind where you're asked about your day or someone checks in. No, this one was different. It was late, around 9 p.m., and I had just gotten comfortable on the couch after a long, exhausting week. The phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but for some reason, I didn't. I picked it up, squinting at the unfamiliar area code. "Hello," I said, voice laced with hesitation. The person on the other end didn't answer immediately. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. And then, a voice, a woman's voice, came through the receiver, soft but steady. "Your wife's not who you think she is," the voice said. My heart skipped a beat. It took me a second to process the words. "What? Who is this?" The voice didn't answer that question. Instead, it repeated, "She's not who you think she is. I can prove it." Before I could ask another question, the line went dead. I stood there, frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear. I stared at the screen, trying to understand what had just happened. My fingers hovered over the phone, unsure if I should call back, but the thought of what that call might mean kept me rooted to the spot. I set the phone down slowly. My mind raced. The idea that someone would call me, a complete stranger, and say something like that about my wife, made no sense. I told myself it was probably some kind of prank, but the feeling in my gut told me something was wrong. I pushed the thought aside and tried to focus on something else. I turned on the TV, but I couldn't concentrate. The words kept repeating in my mind. "She's not who you think she is." I couldn't shake it. Then, the next day, things took an unexpected turn. I came home from work to find a package on the doorstep. It was a small, nondescript box, no return address. I felt a chill run through me as I bent down to pick it up. My first instinct was to leave it, maybe even call the police. But curiosity got the better of me, and I carried it inside. I set it on the kitchen counter. It wasn't heavy, but it felt like it was filled with secrets I wasn't ready to uncover. My heart raced as I grabbed a knife to open it. Inside the box was a single, folded piece of paper. My name was written on it in elegant handwriting, but it wasn't from anyone I knew. I opened it, and what I found made my blood run cold. It was a photograph, a picture of my wife, Rachel, at what seemed like a cafe. But it wasn't just any photo. It was a candid shot, taken from a distance, almost like someone had been watching her. She was sitting alone at a table, her face half hidden by a coffee cup, but it was unmistakably her. And yet, there was something strange about it. The image was taken months ago, but the odd thing was the expression on her face. It wasn't the smile I knew so well, the smile she always gave me. Instead, there was a look of worry, maybe even fear. But what struck me the most was what was written on the back of the photo. "I know what you did, Rachel. I'll be in touch soon." My blood ran cold as I held the photo in my trembling hands. I knew Rachel had been stressed lately, but this was something I couldn't ignore. Someone knew something. It didn't make sense. The knock on the door came a few hours later, while I was still trying to wrap my mind around the photo. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked to the door, the image of Rachel staring back at me from the photograph fresh in my mind. I opened it cautiously, and standing there was a woman. She was familiar, yet I couldn't place her face. She wasn't anyone I recognized, but her eyes, those cold, dark eyes, told me everything I needed to know. She didn't say a word at first. She just handed me another envelope, this time without a photograph. Just a plain, white envelope with a simple note inside. She turned and walked away without a single word. I opened the envelope with shaking hands, and when I saw the message inside, I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "You're running out of time. Your wife isn't the person you think she is. And if you don't act soon, you'll lose everything." I was on the edge now, caught between fear, confusion, and anger. Who was this woman? Who was playing these twisted games? And most importantly, what did Rachel have to do with it? I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of something far darker, far more dangerous than I could ever imagine. And Rachel had been hiding things I wasn't ready to uncover. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything around me was starting to shift. The photograph, the strange phone call, the woman at the door, it was like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I had spent the evening staring at the envelope, unable to look away from the chilling message inside. My mind raced with possibilities, trying to make sense of what was happening. Who was playing these games and why? What did they want from me? The more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. Rachel had been acting off lately, distant, distracted, like there was something she was hiding. But I never suspected anything this extreme. Maybe I should have, but how could I? We had been married for 5 years, and I thought I knew everything about her. At least, I thought I did. The next morning, I went into work, trying to push the events of the previous night out of my mind. I even started telling myself it was just some bizarre coincidence, that maybe someone was pranking me. But deep down, I knew this wasn't a joke. I tried to act normal at work, but my mind kept drifting back to Rachel. I couldn't focus on anything. What if someone had been watching her? What if it wasn't just a random photo? What if it meant something more? Around midday, I received another message. This time, it was a text, and my hands shook as I opened it. The message was simple. You need to confront her. It's the only way you'll get the truth. That was it. No explanation, no follow-up. Just those words. I stared at the screen, wondering who could be sending me these cryptic messages. Whoever it was seemed to know something I didn't, and I hated it. I needed answers. When I returned home that evening, Rachel was already there. She was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, just like any other night. But something felt off. The way she moved, the way she didn't meet my eyes, everything felt wrong. I took a deep breath and decided it was time to ask her. I had to know what was going on. Rachel, we need to talk, I said, my voice shaking slightly despite my best efforts to sound calm. She turned toward me, her face neutral, but her eyes told a different story. About what? She asked, though I could see the hesitation in her gaze. About the photo, I said, trying to keep my tone steady. The one from yesterday. The one with you in it. For a moment, she didn't respond. Her hands froze mid-motion, and I could see the color drain from her face. What photo? She asked, though I could tell she already knew exactly what I was talking about. The one in the envelope, I pressed. Rachel, someone knows something. I don't know who they are or how they got that picture, but I need to know what's going on. Please, tell me the truth. Her silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she put the knife down, took a deep breath, and turned to face me fully. Her eyes were wide, almost panicked, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. I can't, she whispered, almost as if the words were too painful to say. My heart dropped. What do you mean you can't? I don't have a choice, she said, her voice cracking. I never wanted you to find out like this. Before I could say anything, she reached for her phone and handed it to me. On the screen was a message. A message that made my blood run cold. I've told him everything. You can't hide anymore. I stared at the message, feeling like I had just stepped into a web of lies I wasn't prepared to untangle. Who was sending this? What was Rachel hiding? And why had she been so scared to tell me the truth? I looked up at her, desperation in my eyes. What is this? Rachel, what's going on? Who's behind all of this? Tears started to fill her eyes, and she looked down, unable to meet my gaze. It's too late, she whispered. It's all going to come out soon anyway. I could feel the walls closing in around me, the pressure mounting with every passing second. I didn't know who to trust anymore, not even the woman I had spent years of my life with. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the walls were closing in on me, suffocating me with confusion and fear. Rachel's words lingered in the air, heavy with the weight of secrets I didn't understand. It's too late, she had whispered. It's all going to come out soon anyway. I stood there, unable to form a response. What was she talking about? What was coming out? Why was she so terrified? She had never been like this before, not even when things were tough between us. I tried to steady my thoughts, but they were racing, colliding into each other like an unstoppable storm. I needed answers, now. Rachel, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I need you to tell me everything. Who's been sending these messages? What's going on? She closed her eyes, squeezing the bridge of her nose like she was fighting off a headache. After a long moment, she finally spoke, her voice shaking. I never wanted you to get involved in this, she said. It's not what you think. I was barely holding on. What's not what I think? What's the truth, Rachel? She hesitated for a moment, as if weighing the consequences of her words. Then, with a shaky breath, she finally looked me in the eyes. There's someone in my past, someone I never told you about, and they're threatening us. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. Who? I demanded. Who is it? What do they want from us? Rachel turned away, pacing across the room, clearly struggling to find the words. She reached for the counter, gripping it as if trying to steady herself. I don't know how to explain this, she said. but I've been hiding something from you. Someone from my past. Someone who doesn't want me to move on. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Rachel, I don't understand. Who is this person? She paused, taking a deep breath. His name is Thomas, she whispered. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Thomas. I didn't know anyone by that name in her life, but I could see from the look on her face that this was someone important to her. Someone dangerous. Who is he? I asked, my voice now barely more than a breath. What does he want? Her hands trembled as she sat down on the couch, burying her face in her hands. He was a part of my life before we met. A mistake I made a long time ago. But he won't let me go. He's been watching me, controlling me from afar. And now he's threatening us, threatening everything we've built together. I felt the ground shift beneath me. This was not what I had expected. I thought I was dealing with some kind of prank or some random stranger trying to mess with my life. But this was something real, something much darker. I was trying to process what she had said, but the pieces weren't fitting together. Why didn't you tell me about him? I asked, my voice laced with frustration. How long has this been going on? Rachel didn't answer immediately. She just stared down at the floor, tears welling in her eyes. I could feel the anger building inside me, but I didn't know how to direct it. How could she keep something like this from me? How could she have been hiding this? Thomas? I was scared, she finally said, her voice barely audible. He's dangerous, and I didn't want you to get caught up in it. But now it's too late. He's watching us. I took a step closer, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't even begin to organize. What does he want from us? What's his game? She shook her head, clearly at a loss. I don't know, but he's been sending messages, leaving notes, threatening me. I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I kept it all a secret, it would go away. But now, I don't think it's going to stop. I felt my chest tighten with a mix of anger and fear. I had always trusted Rachel, trusted her completely. But now, it felt like the foundation of everything I thought I knew was crumbling beneath me. Rachel, I need to know everything. I need to know what's going on, all of it. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with fear. You're not safe, either. He won't stop until he gets what he wants. I could feel my pulse quicken. This wasn't just a bad dream anymore. This was real, and I had no idea how deep it ran or how far it would go. I stood there in the living room, staring at Rachel, trying to make sense of the chaos swirling in my mind. Everything she had said, Thomas, the threats, the fear in her eyes, it all felt like it was happening in slow motion. But it was real. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. Rachel, you're telling me that this Thomas guy has been watching us? For how long? My voice was tight, the anger rising with every word. Why didn't you tell me about him sooner? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, visibly struggling to keep it together. I didn't know what to do. Every time I tried to get away from him, he'd show up again. He's not someone you can just forget. He knows things about me. Things no one else does. I took a step forward, trying to process everything. What kind of things? What's his hold on you? Rachel looked away, as if the truth was too painful to speak. He was my ex. Before you. But it was never normal. It was toxic. And he wouldn't let go. No matter how many times I told him to leave me alone, he kept coming back. My head spun. I felt like I was losing control of the situation. So what? This guy has been stalking you for years. Rachel nodded, her face pale. It started out small. Texts, phone calls, then it escalated. He would show up places, always at the wrong time. I thought I could get rid of him for good after I met you. I thought he'd finally leave me alone. But I was wrong. I felt a chill run down my spine. And now he's sending me photos and notes. What's he trying to do? What does he want? She shook her head, looking terrified. I don't know, but it's not just about me anymore. I think he's targeting you too. He's watching both of us now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind raced, replaying the last few days, how the text had started, the phone call, the mysterious photo. It wasn't just some random stranger. This was a person from Rachel's past, someone who was actively trying to destroy our life. Why now, Rachel? Why is he coming after us now? I asked, desperate for any clue. She paused, her hands trembling as she pulled a photo out of her purse. I think he's been planning this for a while. This is a picture he sent me a week ago. I thought it was just a threat, but now I realize it's something more. She handed me the photo. My heart stopped when I saw it. It was of me, taken while I was at work. The photo was grainy, like it had been taken from a distance, but there was no mistaking the angle or the background. It was a picture of me, walking out of the office building, looking completely unaware of the camera. Jesus, I muttered, my stomach churning. He's been watching me too? Rachel nodded, her voice barely a whisper. He's been watching both of us. He's always a step ahead. I felt the weight of her words sink in. This wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It was about both of us, our lives, our safety, and I had no idea what to do next. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. We were both trapped in this invisible web of fear, and I couldn't see a way out. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. I jumped, my heart racing, half expecting it to be another cryptic message from Thomas. I glanced at the screen, and my blood ran cold. It was a text from an unknown number. I'm closer than you think. I froze. My mind raced. Was this Thomas? Or someone else? Rachel looked at me, her eyes wide with panic. What does it say? I didn't answer right away. I was too busy processing the words. The feeling of being watched, being hunted, it was suffocating. And now, it was clear. This wasn't just a game. This was real, and we were in danger. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my nerves. It says, I'm closer than you think. Rachel gasped, her face going pale. He's here. He's already here. The words on my phone screen burned into my mind. I'm closer than you think. It was chilling, almost taunting, as if the person on the other end knew exactly how to twist the knife deeper. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. My first instinct was to run, to get out of the house, but I couldn't leave Rachel. Not when things had gotten this far. She was standing there, shaking, her eyes wide with fear. We have to call the police, she whispered, almost pleading. But I didn't move. I couldn't. I wasn't sure who to trust anymore. What if calling the police only made things worse? What if Thomas had connections? What if he was already watching us, waiting for us to make a mistake? Who is this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper as I stared at the phone. I waited for a response, my fingers hovering over the screen, but nothing came. I glanced up at Rachel. What do we do? Her voice cracked as she spoke. We can't keep hiding from him. He knows everything. He's been following me for years. And now you're in danger too. I felt like I was suffocating. The weight of it all, the secrets, the threats, the unknowns, it was too much. I needed to know more, needed to understand how deep this went. Is there anything you haven't told me? Anything else I should know? I asked, my voice sharp now. I wasn't angry, but the fear and confusion were starting to boil over. She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with regret. I didn't want to drag you into this. But there's more. Much more. What? My voice was tense now, demanding an answer. What else is there? Rachel hesitated. Thomas, he's not the only one involved. My mind raced. What do you mean, not the only one? Who else? She closed her eyes, as if trying to summon the courage to say the words. I think there's someone else helping him. Someone. Closer to us. My stomach turned. Closer to us? You mean someone we know? She nodded, her hands trembling. I don't know for sure, but I think he has someone working with him. Someone who has been watching us all along. The room seemed to close in on me. I was suffocating, trapped in a nightmare I didn't know how to escape from. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, to get out before it was too late, but I couldn't. Rachel was my wife. I couldn't leave her. I can't believe this, I muttered. How do you even know who's behind this? I don't, Rachel admitted, tears welling in her eyes. I'm just as scared as you are. But I think we've been followed from the beginning. That person in the photograph, the one of you leaving work, wasn't taken recently. It was taken months ago. And that means someone's been planning this for a long time. I finished for her. She nodded, visibly shaken. I don't know how they got that photo. I don't know how they know so much about us. But I think they've been watching us for a while now. I glanced at the phone again, the text still staring back at me. I'm closer than you think. I had a sudden, terrible thought. What if they were already inside the house? What if they had been watching us the whole time, waiting for us to make the wrong move? Rachel's voice trembled as she spoke. We have to leave. Now. I didn't hesitate this time. I grabbed my jacket and ran toward the door, pulling Rachel behind me. But as I reached for the handle, I froze. The door was locked. It wasn't locked when I came in. I knew it. My heart pounded as I turned to Rachel, who looked just as confused as I was. Why is the door locked? I asked, my voice shaky. I don't know. I didn't lock it, she whispered. Before I could process anything else, I heard it. A faint sound, almost imperceptible, coming from behind the door. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. My blood ran cold. Someone was out there. And they were getting closer. The footsteps outside the door stopped. My pulse hammered in my ears as I stood frozen, staring at the locked handle, trying to make sense of everything. I turned to Rachel, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely a breath. Rachel nodded, her lips trembling. "Yes. What is that?" I couldn't answer. I didn't know what to make of it. My heart raced faster with every second. Whoever was out there had been listening, waiting. I felt like prey, exposed and helpless. I slowly stepped back from the door, pulling Rachel with me. We had no escape now. The back door was too far to reach, and even if we got outside, where would we go? I felt trapped, cornered. And then it came. A soft knock. Just one. Slow and deliberate. It was the kind of knock that made every muscle in my body tighten. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The silence that followed was even worse. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I reached for my phone instinctively, but it was too late. My hand shook as I glanced at the screen. Nothing. No messages. No calls. Whoever was out there was already too close, watching us, controlling this moment. Rachel stepped forward, her voice barely audible. "Who is it?" No answer. Only that lingering silence. The knock came again, louder this time. A little more urgent. I knew in that moment, this wasn't a random stranger. This wasn't just some scare. Whoever was outside, whoever had been watching us, they had been planning this for far too long. "Stay back," I whispered to Rachel, my eyes locked on the door. My brain screamed at me to act, to do something, but I was paralyzed with fear. What if they had a weapon? What if they had already made their move? Another knock, and then a voice. It was muffled, but I could hear it clearly enough. "Open the door. We need to talk." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. That voice, familiar yet unfamiliar at the same time, sounded like someone I should know, but I couldn't place it. Rachel's eyes locked onto mine. "Do you recognize it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head. "No, but I don't think we should open that door." The room seemed to shrink around us. My mind raced. Should we call the police now? Should we confront whoever was outside? The knocking came again, louder this time, accompanied by a sharp voice that made my blood run cold. "Rachel, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Open the door." Rachel froze, her face going white. She turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. "It's him. It's Thomas." I felt the ground beneath me shift. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't prepared to face him, especially not like this, with no idea of how far his control reached. The voice on the other side of the door spoke again, this time with more force. "You can't hide from me forever. You never could." I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. My mind raced, spinning with terror. Rachel wasn't just hiding from a past mistake. She was hiding from a nightmare that had come to life, and now it had found us. I could feel the room closing in on me. The voice on the other side of the door wasn't just Thomas. It was a threat, a promise. And now it was real. It wasn't some distant memory from Rachel's past anymore. It was here, right in front of us. Rachel was frozen, her face drained of all color. She looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. "He's never let me go," she whispered, almost to herself. "He's not just someone from my past. He's dangerous, Ethan." I shook my head, trying to comprehend what she was saying. "But why didn't you tell me sooner? Why keep hiding this from me?" "I thought I could handle it," she replied, her voice cracking. "I thought I could move on without him knowing. But he always knew where I was. He's been watching me. And now you're in danger too. It's too late." Her words were a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a bad situation. This was something that had been brewing for years. And now, it was here, knocking at our door. "Rachel," I said, trying to steady myself. "We need to call the police. We can't keep pretending this isn't happening." But she just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand. The police can't help us. They couldn't protect me then. They won't protect us now. Thomas, he has too many people, too many connections." The door knocked again, this time harder, as if someone was growing impatient. The voice that followed was colder, sharper. "Rachel, I know you're in there. You can't keep running from me." I stepped closer to Rachel, my heart pounding. "What do we do?" I asked, but the answer felt impossible. Rachel stared at the door, the weight of everything pressing down on her. He's not going to stop until he gets what he wants. And that's why I couldn't tell you. I didn't want you to become part of it. I didn't want him to hurt you. A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. This wasn't just about some obsessive ex anymore. It was something bigger. Rachel had been right all along. We were tangled in something much darker than I'd ever imagined. The voice from behind the door snapped me back to reality. Enough hiding, Rachel. It's time to face the consequences of your choices. Let me in. I looked at Rachel, desperate for some kind of answer, but she didn't have one. She was shaking, her hands pressed against her mouth as if trying to stifle the panic inside. I don't know what to do, Ethan, she whispered. I never thought it would get this bad. I never thought he'd come here. To us. I felt the walls close in on me, the weight of her words crashing over me. How could I protect her if she was so tangled in this? If we were both already caught in Thomas's web, what chance did we have? Suddenly, the doorknob turned. Slowly, gently, my breath caught in my throat. Someone was trying to get in. I backed away, instinctively pulling Rachel behind me. There was no way we could just stand here and wait for whoever it was to walk through that door. The man outside had made it clear he was coming for us, and he wouldn't stop until he had what he wanted. I grabbed my phone, heart racing, and hit the emergency call button. But before the call could even connect, I heard it again. The voice, now closer, louder, almost laughing. Don't waste your time, Ethan. I've already planned for everything. The door rattled again, more violently this time. I looked at Rachel, the terror in her eyes mirroring my own. Whatever was about to happen, it was already too late. I was on the edge. Every part of me screamed to run, to find an escape, but there was nowhere to go. The fear clawed at me as I watched the doorknob twist again, the sound of it turning sending a jolt of panic through my chest. But then, something shifted inside me. I couldn't let fear control us. I couldn't let Thomas, or whoever this was, win. Not without a fight. Rachel, I said, my voice steady now, more determined than I'd felt in hours. We can't let him dictate what happens next. Rachel looked at me, her eyes full of tears and fear, but something in my words seemed to spark a shift in her too. She wiped her eyes and nodded, as if realizing what we both had to do. We're not running anymore, I told her. We're facing this head on. Before she could say anything, I heard it again, another knock, louder this time, almost desperate. It felt like the door was shaking under the pressure. But then, something strange happened. The door stopped rattling. For a moment, there was silence. I waited, my hand gripping the phone in my pocket, ready to call for help, but unsure of what kind of help we even needed. Suddenly, I felt it. The tension in the air seemed to lift, just slightly. I looked at Rachel, who was now standing by my side, her fear replaced with something else, resolve. Then, the doorbell rang. A simple, soft chime that broke through the thick silence. Rachel's eyes widened, and I could see the confusion settle in. Who's that? She asked, voice trembling again. I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't hesitate. I approached the door cautiously, hand on the handle. The air was thick with anticipation. Was it Thomas? Was he back to torment us? Or was this someone else? Someone who might have a solution? With a deep breath, I opened the door, ready for whatever came next. To my shock, there was no one standing there. Instead, lying on the doorstep, was a small, unmarked package. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't move for a moment, unsure if this was part of the game, another twisted move in the play that Thomas had orchestrated. Rachel stepped forward and crouched down, gently picking up the package. She turned it over in her hands, noticing something I hadn't. A small, almost invisible note tucked into the corner. Ethan, she said quietly, it's for us. She opened the note, her hands shaking. Her eyes scanned the paper, and then a smile, a real smile, appeared on her face, like a weight had been lifted. It's from the police, she said. They've been tracking Thomas for months. They know where he is. They've been monitoring everything. This is the end of it. I felt a rush of relief flood through me. Finally, after everything, after all the fear, the uncertainty, and the feeling of being trapped, it was over. They've got him, Rachel repeated, her voice shaking with disbelief, but also hope. It's over. In that moment, I felt the tension leave my body, like a heavy fog lifting. We weren't alone anymore. We weren't trapped in the darkness. Help had finally arrived. Rachel and I stood there, staring at the note in our hands, the truth finally sinking in. Everything had changed in that instant. We had made it through the worst of it together, and now we could rebuild. We could move forward, free from the shadow of Thomas and whatever hold he had tried to maintain over us. I turned to Rachel, taking her hand, and for the first time in days, I saw the woman I married. The strength in her eyes had returned, and I knew that no matter what, we would face the future together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace.